So recently, as of what was it, Wednesday, I believe, or Tuesday, I had a chance to sit down and play the Retro Freak with REMO. Not only did I relive some nightmares from my childhood that night when I went to sleep, I also got to experience very interesting games that I feel would be awesome for a reboot. But you know what? I think keeping it old school, keeping it 8, 16, less than polygon, bit is more interesting, in my opinion, more fun. Got to play Poltergeist, which was made by EA, who is now, if it's sports, EA wants to have their dick right in it. But so
back when they were creative and fun and took risks, not overcharging for the exact same piece of DLC they gave out last week.
Right. But as I was playing through Turtles in Time for the Sega instead of for Super Nintendo, it dawned upon me how much fun I was remembering that I had from childhood and how much fun retro games still are, even though they're not open world and sandbox and all these other things, how much joy that I was getting out of playing a game that I remember playing as a child, and honestly just having that urge to go back and play more and more older games just for the sheer fun of playing the older games.
Well, see, and like you said, sandbox, there are sandbox-like games from back then. The original Legend of Zelda, any Zelda game, Sword of Mana. Like, there are some great RPGs and open world type games where you can just travel and do your own thing for a while, that you can do that. And the thing about these great games is there's a lot of these games that, because it's not like nowadays where games are hyped up and everybody knows when any new one's coming out, whether it's shit or not, there's a lot of good games that we missed back then. You can go back now and discover, and it'll be a whole brand new experience of this great game that we never even knew existed.
And also, if you taking that step back into time playing some of these retro games, you start coming at it with a totally different philosophy than what you did as a kid. Because it's like, oh, I know when I was younger, I would run, jump, and die every freaking time, but there just didn't seem to be another way around it. And then as you get older, you go, wait a minute, run, fall off the ledge, jump, then jump again. Oh, fuck, I'll make it. Oh, shit, okay, then that's how it's done.
Your Eureka moment. Yeah, I've had many of those now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, everybody's crazy about Xbox One, PS4, PC, but, go ahead and grab the NES or, in this case, the Retro Freak that, Remo has put out there for us and likes to play. And, sit down and, maybe play a few games from your childhood, maybe introduce some little people that you just happen to create to games from your childhood, and watch the fun unfurl as they get frustrated and you're sitting there going, I know your pain. I know your pain.
Exactly, because they're going to go straight through the same thing you did, and when they finally overcome that, they're going to be jumping for joy and have a feeling of self-confidence and self-achievement like no other, because these games were simplistic. Anybody could pick these up and play, and for the most part, yes, there were some shitty ones, but for the most part, the controls were dead on, and if you fucked up, and that was your fault. Like, yeah, some of the deaths might be cheap and Ninja Gate and this and that, but for the most part, if you know the patterns and if you've got the skills, you can beat it. So, when you really do overcome something in those games, unlike newer games where it's just, it's easy, I can just run through it in a couple hours and beat it, you actually get that, feeling of achievement and self-worth. And it's fun just sitting back with your kids, reminiscing like, oh shit, they're about to do it, I remember when I did, and see them have that moment, and you can share that with them.
Oh, just real quick, I actually did watch a stream of somebody playing the original Call of Duty back when it was World War II, before all this Modern Warfare and space battles and everything else. And I found myself sitting there telling myself, that's not going to hit him. That's just not how games were made back then. Stop aiming over his head, just aim straight at him. There wasn't bullet drop back in 2003. And, I think that's really what sparked this segment for me, was I watched that, and then the next day I played, a bunch of retro games over at Remo's and stuff, and, the games are fun. They're easy, like you said. They got patterns to them. Not only that is, you grew up with it, so you want your kids to kind of have that moment with them too, where it's like, oh, okay, this is what did it. This is what made Dad yell and scream at the TV, and then now yell and scream at the TV as an older adult with a different console. Oh, okay.
there's some great games that just can never be recreated, and great moments in games that, you know, you can only get from playing these old ones. And not just that, but there's also these hidden gems like I talked about. And these type of games where you want to pass on to your kids and let them play the newer version afterward. There's so much you can do with these old games. But for the most part, most of them are dirt cheap. Yeah, there's some rare ones that are super expensive. And even then, if you don't have the money to afford it, get an emulator and just have fun. I know it's piracy to some, but you just have fun. Can't go.
I was thinking about it. I mean, one game that just it made me mad to no end was that freaking Ghouls and Goblins, or Goblins and Ghouls, or the one you were showing me.
Yeah, it's
I was like, dude, I know how to play this. I know how to play the game and everything. And it just, I was getting so frustrated with it. And I was like, you know what? I bet you $20 if I handed this controller to my son and showed him what button was to jump, what button was to throw the javelin or whatever, he would probably run through it perfectly fine, or he would scream and yell at the ghosts and goblins to quit touching them.
And it really does show you like how far we came in the gaming community. Like, people are, you know, half of the community loves Dark Souls, and there's other gamers that'll never touch it after the first one. It's like, it's too fucking hard. Why they even make games like this? It's like, dude, you have no fucking idea. Like, I've gone back over the years, and like, I've always played retro games, as what people call it nowadays, but I've always gone back and played the games that I've kept and loved. But you go a good couple of years without playing a certain game, and you jump into it, and it's hard. Oh boy, you're gonna have to relearn that process all over again and get your ass kicked. People have it easy in comparison.
I feel like they just dumb down the games anymore for people, so that way they don't feel bad. That's why when something like Dark Souls comes along, they're like, oh, it's too hard, or oh, it's so challenging, and everything else. And we're just kind of sitting here going, you know, in Mario, we didn't even know how to fucking jump. You know how many times I ran right into somebody because I didn't know how to jump? Okay.
Yeah, you thought you did. Oh, I just hit the jump button. No, you got to be precise with that D-pad, how hard you hit the jump button. Like, yeah, these games were simplistic, but yet you had to have skill and know how to, what's the word I'm looking for? You needed to, over time, build up that inner trust, muscle memory, and quick thinking. Because, yeah, it might have the same pattern over and over again, but if you do this step A differently than you did the first time, just by a nanosecond, or by jumping just a millisecond, millimeter beforehand, then that whole entire pattern changes, and you have to think off the fly. In games now, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just real quick before we got too far away. Just like with Mario, when you had to jump and get the flag, you know, if you jump off that top peg just wrong, you're not getting the bonus.
Exactly. You could jump from different angles of it, but if you don't do it just right, and then you hit that little one button just to get a little bit of a running jump on it, and you hit it right off that edge, it's the money shot every single time.
Saw something the other day that, you know, I just want to throw in as my last piece to this is better graphics does not make a better game. Just saying.
True. Very, very true. There are a lot of games that look beautiful that just are not good whatsoever. And people let it fly to some degree. And then some people want to shit on a game for, oh, this graphics are like going back a year or two. The gameplay is solid and it's fun to play. You know, a lot of people love Uncharted. I like the Uncharted games. There are some, I've even seen it from some bigger YouTubers and this and that, where they say, hey dude, all it is fucking cutscenes, and then they throw me into this game, and it's okay, it's mediocre when the controls and gameplay mechanics, but it's nothing special, and it actually pisses me off. I go from basically watching a movie I'm invested to playing like okay game mechanics for like 5-10 minutes, and it just takes me completely out of it. So I've seen actually some people having the reverse effect to some newer games.
I agree. I mean, I personally love Uncharted, but that's besides the point. But I would rather have graphics that are set back a year to 3 years and have better gameplay than have top-of-the-line graphics and have this horrendously shitty game that I have no interest in. I just wasted my money on.
And that's kind of like what I said with my Mirror's Edge reviews. Like, a lot of people are shitting on it, which it deserves. A lot of it's mediocre or subpar. The gameplay mechanics of it are a lot better than the first one, which a lot of people hold as the classic now. It's like, well, all the gameplay mechanics work. I mean, fuck, just mute it. I mean, does that make a good game? No. If you don't like the original Mirror's Edge, then you're not going to like this, and even if you are a fan, there's a 50-50 chance you're not going to want to play it at all. But you can't say it's a god-awful game when the mechanics are good. See, now we're rating games like movies instead of games. It's like, oh, is it a good story? How are the characters? Which is very important, and that's why I gave it like a 2.8 out of a 5 for just average gamers, and then a 3 out of 5 for Mirror's Edge fans. But you can't just completely diss a game based on graphics and story. If the game is really fun, the gameplay is really there, then you got to give it some kudos for it.
I would. See, for me to be interested in a video game, I have to be interested in the gameplay, and if an hour into the game I'm not into the gameplay, I'm just not playing the game.
See, I think that's where, like, you know, we see it on YouTube. A lot of YouTubers like to play indie games, and yes, they look retro, and a lot of them on purpose are 8 to 16-bit games visually. The gameplay mechanics are solid, or they're very hand-drawn art. Like Rogue Legacy was a very good popular game there for a while. Binding of Isaac, Super Meat Boy. You had just so many of them. Shovel Knight. Where the game mechanics were amazing, and then they threw in some good little story points. Of course, you can't do a full-on like cinematic movie like the new games. You can throw in some good story now to those and still have fun, and it's basically a retro game just made now.
Yeah, and I think the feel of retro games is I like it in the indie world. I mean, I have a few games on here that, on Steam on my computer that are actually pretty retro-esque. Wow, that was hard to say. But at the same time, you know, it's like I can't dog the game because it plays beautifully. I mean, the story. Hell, I found some retro games have better story than most of the shit that they're putting out now, and that's what cracks me up. Breath of Fire, I remember for Super Nintendo. I think it was Breath of Fire 5 or 6. Story in it was beautiful, and I go and I look at what, you know, is passing for, you know, let's just say. I think at the time it was Final Fantasy X was the Final Fantasy I was in the middle of playing, and I went, so it's all a fucking dream? Really? That's the best you have? Oh, and you did the clone thing almost back to back with, Final Fantasy VIII right there in the middle. I mean, come on, guys. You're really burning up your shit here. But oddly enough, Breath of Fire games, Chrono Trigger are actually original stories that are engaging you and making you go, oh. And see, they're not getting remakes or reboots or anything like that, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, but at the same time, we are getting remakes of like Final Fantasy VII and a lot of the Dragon Quest games. It's like, I wonder what games had better story. And they had to do a lot more with less back then. And you can still find these incredible fucking stories. The original Phantasy Stars, man. Of course, the third one is a little, among fans. But all the other ones are fucking amazing games with good stories, man.
See, I like the third one. I didn't have a problem with it. It's just, did it feel short to you too?
It was a little short, but they had that twist where you find out, like, oh shit, you're in space. And I actually thought that was a good twist, and it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those games that gets more hate now than it actually did when it came out. Like, people hate when I hate on Mario 2 and Castlevania 2 and Zelda 2. Like, oh, they completely changed the game. Well, one, they only had one game before it. This was the sequel, and they wanted to do something different. And nobody was bitching and moaning back then. Everybody loved it. That's why they came out with other sequels.
Yeah, and see, and that kind of ties into just loosely, but ties into how I was explaining how I hope Berserk game is, because I've seen it done before. Mario 2, I actually like fucking Mario 2 just for the simple fact that certain characters have certain abilities in that game. Granted, it's still a platformer, but you got Toadstool, Princess Peach, Crazy Legs, Luigi, and Mario, and, you know, you have to jump on an egg and throw it at the woman that's spitting it out of her mouth at you. I don't care what you say. That is a cool boss battle to me.
Exactly. And don't forget, a lot of the characters that we still have today in Mario, like the Shy Guys and a plethora of other ones, came from that game. Yes, it was originally Doki Doki Panic in Japan, but that was our Super Mario 2, and the Japanese knew that we loved it so much that they kept the characters going and the mechanics of the characters. Don't forget, Floaty Peach, that's still her ability in Super Mario World 3D as it was all the way back then. Like, people, I think, like to retroactively hate on those games for some odd reason, and it makes no sense.
Well, what slays me is there's a certain age demographic right now. I would say probably 12 to maybe 16 that will look at a retro game and not even bother trying to play it because the fact of, oh well, if this isn't Call of Duty Black Ops 9 or whatever the fuck they're playing now. Well, it's still it, but they want to bash, old original Metal Gear Solid. But it's like, excuse me, that Metal Gear Solid is fucking legit and has a better storyline than your fucking takes a half hour to beat goddamn Call of Duty.
Well, here's something that killed me. Somebody in our age group, right in between our ages, swears up and down they're the biggest Zelda fan. And I believe that they are. They have almost all the Zelda games, all the Zelda memorabilia, this and that. But she hates the original Legend of Zelda. It was so stupid. Look at the graphics. There's almost no story. Oh, the story was there. The story was in the context. When you read the manual, you got a little bit from the wise men and this and that as you move forward. It was completely open world. You got to choose where you went, how you did the game. We would not have Zelda today if it was not for that. Mechanics in that first game and what that game was meant to be, what it was, is what Zelda is now. And they're actually kind of going back to the open worldness with the brand new Zelda. And some people are throwing a bitch fit about it.
Sorry for cutting you off, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing with that original Zelda is you got the bare bones of what the storyline is, but you wrote your story, which was unheard of at the time, which honestly I really don't think is happening still. I mean, yeah, you have games that are pretty open world, like Skyrim and stuff like that, where you kind of just mosey on and do side quests and other things like that. And if you choose to, after you're level 40 or something, go do the main quest, you can do the main quest. But with Zelda, it was kind of like, here you go, good luck, have fun, and that was definitely something I felt was pretty cool with Zelda. Like, I will sit and play Zelda just for the simple fact of how interested at the time I was by that idea when I was playing games like Breath of Fire and Final Fantasy and stuff like that, where it's like, oh no, this is what's gotta happen. You gotta do it just like this.
And exactly, like, nobody ever had the same experience with Zelda. Everybody had their own different, unique experiences. No two gameplays were the same. Nowadays, with speedrunners and now with strategy guys, everybody knows where everything is, so it kind of is now. But going into that game fresh with no idea, that was your very own experience, man. To discover an entire world, basically. And it just drove me nuts when she wanted to shit on it. That's the worst Zelda game ever made. It's like, without that game, you wouldn't have any Zeldas. It's like, yes, Ocarina of Time's cool and all, but to me, the two best Zeldas ever, still to this day, is Link to the Past and the original Zelda. And then my third favorite is, I'm gonna catch so much hate, Twilight Princess.
No, you guys pretty much hit everything I was gonna say.
Oh yeah, I'm good. That's all we had. Yep. Looks like it. Yep, that's it.
Thank you everybody for sticking with us. I'm sorry I kept turning off the stream on accident by hitting the wrong button from me muting myself and getting...
He lies.
Yeah, I did it on purpose. I just wanted to troll the shit out of our viewers. Make them want more and make them... But no. Thank you guys for sticking with us through all this. If you dig this one, you'll probably do the next one. Stay tuned for more. I'm Remo. I'm followed by...
Justin.
Michelle.
Ashley.
You can see us next time.
I'm not gonna lie.